But first up, let's take a look at some football. We're about a third of the way through to the show. And this, of course, is GWS and Carlton.
They controlled this game, the Giants, for 3.5 quarters, and the Blues got on a run when they kicked 4 straight goals. Ooh. But then they steadied the Giants, and you got to wonder where Carlton are at the moment. If you look at Carlton's spine, and from full back to full forward, I think they stack up really nicely with Jones and Wiedering and Sam Walsh in the middle. Obviously missed Charlie Curnow, but that man was fantastic. But there's something really wrong with Carlton, whether they can't defend, whether the game plan their coaches are trying to put on them to defend isn't working, or the players can't execute it. So there's some real question marks, Lordo.
You're spot on, Bernie. And there's a lack of trust amongst the players. I think they're confused, or they just don't want to do what the coach wants them to do. And let's take a look at their last 10 weeks of football. And they've only beaten Essendon, which isn't a bad win in hindsight, but now, and obviously Hawthorn. But everyone else against quality sides, they lose. And I want to look at, they're the 17th ranked defence. So only North Melbourne have conceded more scores than Carlton. And I want to show some vision of why this happens, okay? So here's Newman, and he's on Toby Green. So you need trust amongst your defenders in that situation. They rely on Jones and Wiedering to do it through skill. So he's had to come up to the player. So you want trust. So Zach Williams is saying to Liam Stocker, can you take Toby Green? Got to go. Williams didn't want to go, but he's asked Stocker to, but Liam doesn't really want to do it. Zach Williams is still standing there saying, I'll guard nothing in space, and the ball goes straight over your head. So there's a lack of trust between teams. I look at all these blokes queuing up, okay, for the switch. He doesn't go there, but I also look at a 5-game player in Briggs. Pitnet's back in the space, Mark Pitnet, and you can just float in from the side and do things like that again. That doesn't happen at Melbourne, doesn't happen at Geelong, and this is the worst of them all. So Jack Silvani has to leave Connor Iden. He's asking Harry Mackay, can you please take him for me? Harry doesn't want to do it. Yep. I'm looking at Cripps, what are you guarding? I'm looking at Fisher, what are you guarding? And then this happens. So that is why they're going so poorly, Carlton, because there's no trust, no care. Maybe David Teague isn't teaching it right, or he's teaching it and they don't want to do it. So that's why the hard questions need to be asked at Carlton.
Well, let me ask one. What is it? Is it David Teague's not teaching? It
has to fall on David Teague, because whatever the excuses are, his players aren't doing what he's told, or he's not coaching it properly.
OK, well, that might bring us to an early instalment, Kano, of the Volcano.
Oh. Yeah, to continue the theme, they've conceded 100 points 7 times this year, which is 2 more than the next worst, and that's Essendon. But I'm really disappointed by this. So you have 12 days off. Your club is in crisis. You've announced an external review. I expected a response. Footballers are proud people, and they usually respond. This was the response Carlton gave after the crisis that they've been under and 12 days off. Look at those first quarter numbers. Look at the tackles. Look at disposals. Look at the inside 50s. There was nothing early in that game, which was the most disappointing thing from me, the lack of response from where they have been, and some of their efforts from their leaders. Lordo's highlighted a couple. There's some undisciplined stuff. That's a free kick from Patrick Cripps. That is a free kick. So I'm not sure what he's arguing. He goes with you can't see razor. That's always 50-metre penalty. That's so deflating for a team to see your captain doing things like that. I look at Wiedering, and this should be a ball up. Look at Green, just rip the ball out from a 50-50 situation. This is a goal that, once again, is preventable. This is a leader. This is a best and fairest winner in Wiedering, just easily outmarked. Could have shown, I don't know, 20 clips of this yesterday. They play Adelaide next week. I think if they lose, unfortunately, I think that's it for David Teague. I can't see how. I can't see how, on the back of that, no response after the week that they've had. You play Adelaide next week. I think he's in real trouble anyway. I think it could come a little bit sooner than we may think if they lose to Adelaide next week.
Now, Kane, not looking for a cheap headline here, but you've sort of thrown one up in many ways. If they lose to Adelaide next week,
next Sunday,
do you expect David Teague to lose his job?
Well, you don't announce a review and change minor things. So when you see where they're at, they're just with Collingwood on the ladder. What have Collingwood done? They've changed their coach. There's an external review. If they lose to Adelaide, look, I think he's in trouble regardless. I just think it could come a little bit sooner if they lose and serve up what they served up in the first quarter against Adelaide next week.
But what's the point of having a review if you're going to make a decision before the review is even completed?
Yeah, that's my feeling too. Let's have a look what David Teague said, TJ, before we have the proper debate about that aspect of it. Look, he has at times been frustratingly upbeat amidst all the losses of this year. And even last night, though, he's actually clearly out of a lot of answers.
right now we're in a real pit. We're not playing great football. We're not playing with confidence. There's little patches there where we move the ball okay and we defend it okay, but we're not doing it consistently enough. We've had a few disappointing ones, but that's right up there. It was very hard. It was very frustrating to watch.
Because that's their first performance since the review was called by.
He looks like he's a
Sayers.
hostage there.
It's hard on the Zoom situation, Bill. I know what you're saying. He did look isolated and lost, and he would have after the experience of what he's just gone through, the 9th loss of the year from the 13 games they've played. But look, the expectation with the outsiders coming into review, it is to not necessarily endorse too much of what's going on, is it? It's obviously they're there to change the club in a meaningful way. There's already been one soldier gone down in an assistant coaching capacity, that being John Barker. There's going to, unfortunately for those people, be more, and it all does sheet back to David Teague. For what it's worth, I don't see his position being removed from him within the course of this season, but that's not to say that it can't be being discussed quite pointedly right now.
Well, but mind you, aside from, say, Collingwood supporters, Carlton supporters have had a gutful, haven't they? And when Carlton supporters are in full voice demanding change, invariably that happens.
Could it be expedited, and could Carlton and Collingwood be looking at the same coach at the moment? Yeah. And could Carlton make a decision earlier because they don't want Collingwood to get the jump on them?
Look, Collingwood caught up in his own politics, and that's why they made the announcement on Nathan Buckley. But they did so knowing that Carlton was out there looking for a coach. I don't care what anyone says, that's what has created that particular landscape. There are in the eyes of Collingwood, two clubs looking for a coach, and we might even have a third one at some stage too, given we're about to talk about the Gold Coast Suns. But the marketplace has hotted up, Brownie. Yes, it has.
Could Bucks coach Carlton?
I don't see that being the case, Bill. But
That's silly, Bill.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not, Damo?
I just don't see him going to Carlton, coming off Collingwood, with where he's at right now, having the 10 seasons in the system. If he is to go back to another club, I think he'll be after a period of time out of the game, where he just takes a bit of a breath, has a look at the big picture and where he's at, as much as where he wants to, I suppose, continue to scratch that coaching bug.
Take a year out, have a year on the Sunday Footy Show.
Yeah, a bit of fun.